Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. You can tell how biased the legacy media in this country is towards the Liberal Party based on how they are spinning the story of Chris d'Entremont crossing the floor from the Conservatives over to the Liberals. Reading the headlines, you would think Poilievre was going to be out as Conservative Party leader within the next week or two, or that he's going to get destroyed in his leadership review in January at the Conservative Party convention in Calgary. By the way, I'm going to try and attend that either as a delegate or as some media observer. But the truth is, d'Entremont just left because he didn't get to be the deputy speaker. He didn't get the extra $51,000 of salary, and that's why he left. But the media, despite how inconsistent d'Entremont is for why he left, just buys everything he says, and they keep asking Poilievre if this means that his leadership is on shaky ground, if there's internal dissent within the caucus. Could there be? Well, possibly, but in a certain sense, it doesn't matter because the legacy media does not cover these issues the same way when it happens to the Liberals. Right now, the Liberal Party has Nate Erskine Smith criticizing their budget. Erskine Smith is a Liberal MP, and he cut a well-edited video going after the budget that Carney put out, calling it disappointing and saying that it had not actually fulfilled many of the promises that they ran on in the last campaign. We also have MPs like Chrystia Freeland, the former Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, being very likely to resign her seat because she has internal conflicts with Mark Carney. There are also other Liberal MPs who seem to be looking for outside roles and may be resigning in the next year to go fill those roles because, again, they do not get along with Mark Carney. But there are no articles on any of this. But Poilievre keeps being asked questions about his leadership in the context of Chris d'Entremont leaving. But again, Carney's not being swarmed by journalists being asked if Erskine Smith has confidence in his leadership or not. Anyways, I want to get to this press conference that Poilievre was at where he directly went after d'Entremont for being a hypocrite. And then I want to show you the complete lack of coverage about the Nate situation. But before we get into it, one, yes, I did get new glasses. I have two new pairs. My eyes got a little bit worse, so I got better prescriptions. The first pair looks more like my normal glasses that I was wearing before this, and these pair do make me look a little bit more like Dwight Schrute, but heck, I like them, so I'm going to keep wearing them. And then the other thing is, like I normally say, if you like the show, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are not yet a subscriber, and of course, leave a comment on what you think about this whole situation, or say you like my glasses, say you don't like my glasses, make whatever comments you want about my face. That's totally within the realms of reasonable discussion in my books. But here we have Poilievre speaking to the floor crossing of d'Entremont, and I will tell you to pay attention to the way the question is phrased. I'm just going to play this entire clip. Pay attention to the way the journalist makes this immediately about if Poilievre's leadership is at risk.
And departure from caucus. Chris d'Entremont said your leadership is why he crossed the floor. How do you respond to comments that your caucus is not united right now?
Well, first of all, I just quote Mr. d'Entremont, who said, and I quote, "Since I first elected here in 2019, the cost of living has skyrocketed. Even then, families in Nova Scotia, as it is now, as it was called at the time back, but is now Acadie and Annapolis, were struggling. We warned that the Liberals' out of control spending and massive deficits were irresponsible, but of course they did not listen. Now, after 6 months under the new Prime Minister Mark Carney, who promised fiscal discipline, Canadians are still waiting." He said, Mr. Carney said, I'm quoting Mr. d'Entremont here, Mr. Carney said he would be judged by the cost at the grocery store. Well, Canadians are judging him, and they are not impressed. Since the Liberals came to power, food prices have risen 40%, said Mr. d'Entremont. We have heard it many times here today. It is deliberate, and it is unacceptable. It is inhumane for a G7 country, said Mr. d'Entremont of Liberal policies. He said, "We are a rich country. We are a food basket of a country. We can produce all the food for many people in the world, and we can barely feed ourselves for some reason," end quote. That is how Mr. d'Entremont described the outrageous cost of living as the direct result of Mark Mark Carney's Liberals. I'm very saddened for the Nova Scotia families on whom Mr. Carney and Mr. d'Entremont are raising the price of groceries and homes, but that will not change our resolve to continue to fight for an affordable Canada, affordable budgets, and an affordable future. Thank you.
And I think this whole thing pretty much ends the controversy if there are going to be more floor crossings. Because when you actually understand the sorts of things that Chris d'Entremont was saying about the Liberals and then what are likely his true reasons for leaving the caucus, I don't think that those things are going to apply to a lot of other MPs. Maybe there are some ideological disagreements within the party. Maybe there are people who don't like certain things that happen within the leadership of the party. But the idea that there are going to be anyone willing to follow out Chris d'Entremont at this point when he's effectively leaving for not getting another $51,000 a year, yeah, I think chances are pretty light that anyone wants to associate them with this floor crossing. And then I know there's Matt Genereux who's resigning, and they're saying it's because of internal issues. At the same time, it's like he frankly had a really good excuse for leaving. His entire family doesn't even live anywhere close to his current riding anymore, and he said he was always going to be leaving after this date. I know people were saying, well, the Conservatives had to bully him into not crossing the floor. One, if he was thinking about it, shame on him. But also, two, do you think that you could bully a guy into not crossing the floor if apparently bullying was his big problem with the party? You think you would just make him leave faster? It just seems like he was always planning on leaving, and now because people noticed, and he's probably speeding up his timeline simply because the next election is potentially going to be in the spring. So why doesn't he just leave at that time, anyways? Regardless, though, let's now just jump over to how they are covering the Nate Erskine-Smith criticism of the budget, because this is significant. It's the Liberals' first budget, and one of their own MPs isn't just saying he doesn't like aspects of it. He is saying that they effectively oversold what they were going to do in the election, and this budget is a big disappointment with too much spending at the same time. They're cutting things into green initiatives that he likes, and they're cutting too many public sector employees. But look at the coverage here. There is literally one mainstream media article about it, and I've seen this. It's not even an article. It's a 13-minute and 14-second clip from Power and Politics where they just prattle on about nothing associated with Nate Erskine-Smith's criticisms. And when I say that, I mean they basically just tut-tut, like this kind of like, act like it's no big deal. Oh, okay, Nate's over here saying some noises. He probably wants to run for Ontario Liberal leadership. And that's true, but they don't actually engage with what he said and how he criticized Mark Carney. They basically just call him a bad MP and, oh, yes, well, this stuff like this happens and it's good to have ideological balance. Would they ever talk this way about any Conservative MP criticizing something that Poilievre did? Down here, you can see that the Western Standard covered it. Last time the Toronto Star talked about Erskine-Smith, it was about him potentially running in Ontario in September. And then you have Juno News talking about it, and that's it. There's one clip from the CBC of them talking about it where they actually just downplay the criticisms, and then it's just a little bit of independent media coverage. Because again, the legacy media doesn't care about covering rumors of things happening in the Liberal Party, but they will endlessly cover rumors in the Conservatives. I made a post about this the other day. The way that the media does things is that they'll report there's big rumors in the Conservatives that there could be even more floor crossers, even though those rumors are from Liberal Party sources or they're from bad actors who obviously have a lot invested into creating the idea that there's internal dissension. But if you go in the other direction, if there are rumors that Freeland is upset and other Liberal MPs want to resign and they're going to probably take some international diplomacy post somewhere so they can get out of Ottawa and they're going to resign their seats, yeah, then it's just rumors. So we're not reporting on rumors. What do you think? Who do you think we are? We're the CBC. We need more to go on than just rumors. Well, they report rumors endlessly if it hurts Poilievre, but as soon as it starts, as soon as it's about the Liberals, oh, it's just rumors. We're not going to cover rumors. It's maddening, the double standard that you end up seeing in the legacy media. Because at the end of the day, they can't divorce themselves from the fact that they do get paid by the Liberals. They are literally paid for by the government. They are subsidized by the government. And so what are they going to do? Attack the Liberals and potentially cut off their stream of funding? I now want to show you this new Spark Insight poll and show you how ridiculous it is. Because you know that Spark Insight, Spark Advocacy, as the name implies, is an advocacy organization. It is a left-wing advocacy organization, and they put out this turkey of a poll that says 47% of those on the right believe it's best to choose a new party leader for the Conservative Party. Betting on Poilievre is betting on that someone who's been in politics for 20 years will grow more popular, and the odds tell us that only rarely happens. This is complete nonsense. I'm not just disagreeing with the poll result because I don't like the result. Other polling firms who have far better records than Spark Advocacy is a progressive advocacy group, they show that Pierre Poilievre, the better pollsters, he has like a 85+% approval rating with Conservative Party voters. That is a good result, and it probably means that in his leadership review, he's going to get 85% to over 90% of people saying they want him to stick around. Is it Poilievre's fault he lost the last election? I think we could put some blame at his feet, saying that he should have probably overruled advisors and consultants and said, no, we need a harder stance on immigration. We need a bigger tax cut to run on. We need to strengthen our position on some other issues. I think that could have helped him and potentially caused him to win. But it's undeniable that unlike when Andrew Scheer and Aaron O'Toole were running against the Liberals had a lot more wind behind their sails in 2025 than they did in 2019 or 2021. This was far more like trying to stop Justin Trudeau in 2015 than trying to beat Trudeau in 2019 or 2021, because there are so many voters willing to completely look past the record of the Liberal Party because, well, elbows up. Well, we got to stop Donald Trump. Well, Pierre Poilievre is going to sell out the country because somebody on television said so. That doesn't really work the second time around when Mark Carney has objectively failed as a prime minister in all the areas where he had basically said that he was going to be able to solve the problems, and he was a crisis leader. He is a crisis management style leader, and he knows how to get a deal done, and he knows how to dig us out of a hard economic situation. Well, he doesn't. And so how is he going to run the next election having not solved any problems? But again, minor details when it comes to the media. They haven't been really covering the lack of action. You'll every once in a while get an op-ed somewhere like the National Post or maybe the Financial Post calling it out. Obviously, also the independent media will call them out. But the legacy media just kind of reports on any announcements the Liberals make. I think the public recognizes that there's not been a lot of forward momentum, and every once in a while there will be some legacy media article kind of covering Canadians' disappointment. But overall, they just kind of act like whatever the Liberals put out that's positive will be reported. Anything negative, oh, well, that's just conjecture, so we're not printing it. But again, they love to print conjecture about the Conservative Party. And that's what's so frustrating. Their ability to put out rumors, their ability to have of negative conjecture about the Conservatives is absolutely open and free. The Liberals, well, hey, that's a rumor. Well, hey, that's an opinion, and we don't print opinion. We just print the news. They don't. They print people's opinions in their news stories. Oh, an expert says. Oh, this advocate says about some Conservative politician. They say they're terrible people. They say that they're too much like Donald Trump. These are like, this isn't an op-ed half the time you're reading it. It's like this is a news story, and they're just saying political statement. They're making negative political statements against the Conservatives. But anyway, so yeah, and people have been pointing out all of the other connections to basically left-wing causes with Spark Insights. We have Vesper here says, I'd like to introduce you to Perry, President and CEO of Spark Advocacy, a company that National Newswatch has been reposting. 1, what's an advocacy company doing by polling people on the leader of the Conservative Party? 2, where is the data to verify the polls? Here is the guy who is the president and CEO of them, or I think he's from National Newswatch, or I think this is, yeah, is it him? Yeah, this is the president and CEO of Spark Insight, and he's reposting left-wing propaganda about Pierre Poilievre. I wouldn't be shocked if someone basically hired him either from a red Tory camp like, Doug Ford type or a Tim Houston type in order to undermine Poilievre in the leadership review, or it could even just be a left-wing source just wanting to weaken Poilievre as he goes towards his leadership review to try and convince conservatives to vote against him, to make him look unpopular if another election was called that spring. I don't think it's going to work because at the end of the day, reality tends to rule. Every once in a while, narratives and propaganda will win, but that's usually only for a very short period of time. I think if a spring election happens, there is a much better chance the Conservatives Party would win simply because all the narratives that the Liberals needed to win the last one are no longer in effect. Anyways, with that all being said, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you like the new glasses, and I will see you guys all next time.